Alright everyone, if you've seen posts about people trying to make the hashtag into a Nazi symbol, honk honk, yeah, of course, it's basically satire. It's a satire of, I think, appropriation of symbols and language more than anything else. But I wanted to point something out, which is this. If you were to push something like this hard enough, eventually it would become a self-fulfilling prophecy and actually come true. Even if everyone knows it's a farce, it doesn't even matter. Anyone looking at this will be like, well, that sounds a little bit unbelievable. It doesn't matter. Eventually it becomes true, because what will happen is people start thinking about the hashtag in that context. Eventually, if you pushed hard enough, you'd see some far leftists push back and they would say, well, yeah, now a bunch of Nazis are doing this. We'll show them. We're going to ban the hashtag. We're going to get rid of it altogether. What would the tech experts tell them? Well, that's not really feasible. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Even a fucking telephone company would say, well, what do you expect us to do? It doesn't mean, what are you talking about? We haven't heard anything about this. But the social justice warriors have, and they'll start to complain. It's just like when they tried to label milk as racist, or when AOC rambled about cauliflower and plantations or some stupid shit like this. These people are brain scrambled, and they have a lot of brain scrambled fans. They're also easily duped. It's very easy to run rings around a social justice warrior. They're not very intelligent people usually. People who are like sheep and they have this pro-censorship authoritarian mentality, yeah, they tend to be dumbasses. It's not hard to take them in. Even if they know something is satire, they'll still sort of accept it. So I support the idea of doing things like this. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's actually a good way of fighting back against censorship. Eventually, the very idea of censorship gets tied with farce. The idea is that they're attacking ghosts. There's no actual problem there. It's not like they're trying to crack down on jackbooting stormtroopers marching through the streets shouting about Jews or something. That's no longer the face of it. The new face of it is a frog. A fucking frog, sometimes as a clown. Hashtags, milk, this, things like that. It's a farce. It's a joke. It becomes sort of a self-mockery to even bother talking about censorship. And that's when it dies. Mockery is a great tool against censorship. Way better than marching and chanting slogans and holding up signs, and that's okay, but it doesn't really usually accomplish very much. Not unless you're willing to get hosed down over and over on live TV. If you're willing to sacrifice your own dignity and safety, then yeah, you can get some change going. Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult. Risk incarceration, stuff like that. Very interesting. But techno-propaganda, by the way, is also better than just regular linguistic propaganda. Remember, there's a hierarchy of evolution. Early on, things evolve biologically, like before any human understanding exists. We're talking before hominids and shit. Evolution is all biological. The only way for adaptation to occur, it's not mental, there's no language or anything like that, there's no technology. People aren't even using a fucking hand axe or something. They don't even understand the concept of chiseling down a little stone knife out of obsidian or flint or whatever. All it is biological. It takes a very, very, very long time for it to work. So in the worst case scenario, you have extinction. Then you have the rise of basically the rudimentary communication in a more formal context. Linguistics, you could call it. I would say there's a behavioral side. Gestural is a little bit different from the verbalization aspect with regards to mentality, so we'll split them apart. That's a little faster. It's a little bit easier for that to evolve situationally. It's a little bit easier because now you've got the fundamental principle of the ability to understand things through something that is not them themselves. So going like this means water ahead. Going like this means woolly mammoth. Something like, you don't need to see the mammoth. Erg is going like this. You know there's a mammoth. Or Erg is trolling you. First troll probably just understood that it was funny to misuse gestures. Maybe was too dumb to use them properly and it was considered hilarious. The first satire in the world was probably a caveman who didn't understand the right symbols or some shit like that. Then you have the arising of culture. Organized human behavior requires that fundamental understanding, and I think probably arose around the same time as more verbal communication. So vague utterances. And chimpanzees have utterances and they can sort of understand by them. They understand gestural language. Like Coco the gorilla could knew how many different signs, several hundred or thousand or something. And keep in mind, gorilla is not even a hominid, it's an offshoot, earlier ancestor. Not capable of uttering a human language, doesn't have the vocal capability in one sense. And then that, biology has to evolve, of course, around the same time. Like, The fact that we walk upright, we've got opposable thumbs, stuff like that is important too with regards to making tools and whatever. I think it co-evolves with biology. Then you have the rise, now you have the arising of technology later on, more complicated machinery. The idea that those different individual components can be improved by putting them together. Combination style, that's important. It gets more and more advanced. Then much more recently we have basically techno-propaganda, or techno-linguistics you could call it, with regards to computer systems, totally external from the human. The computers can communicate amongst themselves semi-autonomously if they're set up properly. You simply need people to arrange them in the proper manner, supply them with energy. The next big step will be energy independence for the internet, for robots, for things like that, making them basically autonomous. They'll be a step away from being life forms. Once they figure out how to replicate themselves and they're programmed to do so, and they can develop and evolve themselves, we'll have created our own artificial life. It won't even be biologically based insofar as DNA and things like that go. I suppose we could create cyborgs or androids or something that are partially organic in composition so they can take advantage of the ability to consume organic matter and get energy. We can fine-tune them, do all sorts of cool stuff. We just have to think outside of the box. But to get back to the basic point, though, the further along you go, the quicker things develop and the more potent they are acting upon the human understanding. So techno-propaganda is way better than symbolism in and of itself. The hashtag being the symbol has been co-opted through computer systems by a bunch of shit posters, basically. And now you've got the Daily Dot reporting on it. And understanding that it's satire, of course, saying basically, ha ha, oh, that's a funny joke, ha ha, but it's a nervous chuckle. Trust me, there are plenty of people, plenty of establishmentarians, they laugh at you, but they're doing it not out of actual humor, they're anxious. They're realizing how fast things are moving. Why do you think they're trying to tamp down on internet free speech? They're fucking terrified of viral memes and stuff. Yeah, they're actually afraid of a cartoon frog. In the most literal sense, they're afraid of cartoons at this point. Anime and shit like that. Oh, how far we have come as a human society. You may see like Gatorade swilling incel neckbeaters saying, no, I see someone who could start World War III. In all honesty, not outside of the realm of possibility, which is both really great and kind of scary. I don't know, though. I think I would rather trust a randomly chosen individual 4chan user. It was probably like, a white male in his 20s or 30s, in all honesty. I'd rather trust them with the keys to the nuclear codes than a lot of the politicians and military generals in the world. They'd probably be less likely to burn the world, and if they did, at least they would be laughing while it happened. That's about all. Peace out.